My name is Emeka Ejikeme. Welcome to Quantitative Research Article Evaluation presentation for Brookshire Industries. In this presentation, I will be evaluating the article that was presented by the CEO. This article will be the case study that we will use to implement servant leadership in this industry. As you all know, that the foundation of every industry will determine how far that industry will succeed. So the CEO has given us an article which we are going to use as a case study in order to implement servant leadership in this particular industry. So I'm going to evaluate it in this presentation, compare it with another article, and after the comparison, we will know whether this article is the right article or not. So we are going to see different ways. We are going to have some constructive criticism, bring out the points, the important views, the requirement that we are looking for. And then we will measure them up to know whether this article is the right article or the other article which I am going to actually give out. So let's look at it, that this article will be evaluated. And after the evaluation, we will know whether it's the right one to do. So let's move on to the right slide. Let's talk about the importance of evidence-based practice in developing the culture of an organization. We are talking about implementing servant leadership. But one thing is certain, it is good to use a proven system, something like a deja vu system or plan, something that is guaranteed, a step that has been proved before. This is not time of trial and error. We are talking about something that is workable and it has been proven somewhere. So evidence-based practice is applying or implementing a proven and tested principle to solve an existing approach. So critics also have said something about evidence-based practice. There are some challenges attributed to it. Critics always say that evidence-based practice is monotonic. So people keep on trying because it has been proven before. People keep on trying the same thing, implementing the same thing, without customizing it to the particular problem. So they keep on, oh, it has worked before. Let's keep on doing things that have been working before. Because basically people doesn't like change. So that is the critics about evidence-based practice. And basically, evidence-based practice does not accept changes. It is believed that it has worked before. Why do we apply changes? So those are the critics of evidence-based practice. But in this article, we are going to streamline it. We are going to look at the things that is adjustable. We are going to look at the things whether it is applicable to our own industry to this time. We are going to look at this article, study the do's and don'ts. We are going to see the pros and the cons of this article, and then customize it to our own industry to know whether this article is the right one that we use to build our servant leadership culture, or the article I am going to present at last to compare with it. We will know what is good for us and we shall make our right choice. Let's talk about servant leadership, which is an example of evidence-based practice. Servant leadership is the type of leadership that leads by example with inclusive approach. Servant leadership is the main focus of the article given by the CEO, which we shall be reviewing in this presentation. The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first, according to Robert K. Greenleaf. Let me introduce the article that we'll be reviewing. The article given by the CEO that will be reviewing in this presentation, to compare it with another article which I'm going to present at last so that we can make the right choice. The article, Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership, by David E. Melcher, and Susan M. Bosco. As I said before, you can't talk about servant leadership without mentioning the pioneer of servant leadership, which is Robert Greenleaf. Let me start with this quote at this time. I quote, "Servant leadership always emphasizes, always accepts the person, but sometimes refuses to accept some of the person's effort or performance as good enough." Robert Greenleaf. So when you look at this quote, it is based on practicality of service, not just by saying, but by doing what you need to do to move the company ahead. So we are going to look at this article presented to us to know whether these values are inside so that we can make the right choice. In this slide, you will see the article that was provided by the CEO for the organization. This article was provided by the CEO. It will be used as a case study to implement servant leadership culture, to provide the importance of servant leadership culture, and will be compared with the article I will present so that we'll make the right choice. Let me give little analysis of this article, Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership by David E. Melcher and Susan M. Bosco. According to this article, servant leadership is a leadership system that puts the leader among the employees. It could be leadership by example. It is transformative and progressive. Servant leaders lead by service and showing practical examples, not by commanding, controlling, or intimidating. Let's see some major objectives covered in this article. The first objective covered in this article is information on organizational management. This article gave information on organizational management. The next objective, this article gave information on organizational training. So it provided organizational training. It gave us some values in organizational training. Number 3, it gave also organizational challenges. So it presented organizational challenges. The challenges expected in every organization. The challenges that need to be overcome for an industry to succeed. This article also presented management improvements. How to improve the management of organization in order for the company or the organization to be productive. Let us discuss the philosophical perspective of the research article. We are going to discuss it, the ontological stance, the epistemological stance, and the axiological stance. For the ontological stance, in this study, the author's views are less authoritative and empirical knowledge with minimum use of other authors that are accurate to establish and further the research. Secondly, the authors had limited realism in that they believed servant leadership performs and transforms an organization and increases positive productivity. Mere belief without tangible proof, without authoritatively proving it with research facts. Let's look at the epistemological stance. The epistemological stance of this article. In this article, the author's stance is that of positivism. They are positive in their speech. Everything was positive. They were actually presenting servant leadership as a positive thing to move a company ahead. It is evident in the measurements the author has provided throughout the article. Positivism is simply the idea that we can witness social phenomena and measure it precisely, which they did to their own stand. In this study, the authors believe that we can ideally measure effects of servant leadership with different groups of employees, age, years of employment, and highest level of education. So their stand was positivism in terms of epistemological stance. Let's talk about the axiological stance of this article. In this article, the author's stance is that of interpretivism. It is evident in the way the authors readily accepted and quoted other authors' work as valuable without questioning or testing the authenticity. So they used other authors' work, they accepted their view without actually testing the authenticity or proof whether the findings were correct. Let's evaluate the data analysis presented in this article. Let's evaluate some important data in this article. Car dealership employees with only high degree diploma measured demographic variables. They consider the gender, the age, education, and length of service to determine whether the manager's perceptions were affected by any of these factors. They used questionnaires to assess mid-level service managers of 3 high-performing automobile dealerships to determine whether they were considered by their employees to exhibit servant leader behaviors. 91% were male subjects, were middle-level managers, and their employees are 3 automobile leadership identified by their manufacturers as high-performing in their region and dealership size. All 3 dealerships represented different manufacturers. These dealerships sell exclusive brands. I discovered that the descriptive studies cannot test or verify the research problem statistically in this article. For example, there were a total number of 59 respondents for all 3 dealerships. The average number of years with the current employer was 5.8, with a minimum of 1 year and a maximum of 24 years. Ages range from a minimum of 19 to 81, with a minimum of 38 years. The mode for the highest educational level completed was high school, and 91% were male. In order to compare the article that was given by the CEO to know whether it's the right article, I went on to search for a particular article in the UMGC virtual library using the Boolean operator and went to look for a valuable article, an article that could be used to compare with this article so that we know whether it is the best one or not. The first thing I did was my first search gave me about 5,618 articles. I punched in servant leadership and got 5,618. I went back again to my second search and punched in organizational servant leadership and got 1,200 articles. My third search, I punched in servant leadership and employee development. I got 473. My fifth search, I punched in servant leadership implementation. I got 4 articles. And then my sixth search, I punched in articles servant leadership versus controlling employees. Then 1 article popped up, which is very well. That article was used, and the name of that article is Use Hierarchy for Liberating Servant Leadership Instead of Controlling Employees by Bill Noble's Journal of Organization Design. So this article was the final article I chose. After starting from 5,618, finally, I got the best article I think I will use to compare the article given by the CEO. Now, let me tell you why I decided to use hierarchy for liberating servant leadership instead of controlling employees by Bill Nobles as the right article to compare the original article given by the CEO. Number 1 reason, it is more practical and realistic in its approaches. 2, it is ready for organization, management, and design. And number 3, it considered organizational hierarchy in servant leadership. Now, let's do some comparison between Achieving High Organizational Performance Through Servant Leadership by David E. Melcher and Susan M. Bosco, which was the original article given by the CEO. And the article I have chosen, which is use hierarchy for liberating servant leadership instead of controlling employees, by Bill Nobles. So these articles will be compared head to head. And then at the end of the day, we will know whether the article given by the CEO is the best or the article which I have chosen at last. In this slide, let's evaluate the philosophical perspective of Article 1 and 2 to know which one has the greatest value. When you look at the table, Article 1 for ontological stance is limited realism, while Article 2 ontological stance is full realism. For Article 1, epistemological stance is positivism, while epistemological stance for Article 2 was full realism. Enunciological stance for Article 1, it was interprivitism, while for Article 2, the enunciological stance was realism. In conclusion, when you look at the score, you will discover that Article 2 scored the greatest value for philosophical perspective. That is why I will be choosing Article 2. In this slide, let's look at some important criteria. Let's establish some important criteria to compare the two articles. In Article 1, you discover that the population sample presented was very limited sample of some car dealerships in LA. And for statistical backings, it was limited and incomplete statistical backings. It doesn't have sufficient statistical backings to prove the facts in the article. While for Article 2, Article 2 provided a broader variety of samples across many geographical locations and a broader and more extensive statistical analysis and conclusions in order to prove the facts in this article. So in this slide, let's grade the articles by grading Article 1 versus Article 2. So in Article 1, the population sample grading was low, while the statistical backings was medium. For the grading, Article 2, for population sample, it was high and satisfactory. Enough population sample, high and satisfactory. For Article 2 also, statistical backings was high and satisfactory. So when you look at this table for the grading, you discover that Article 2 is scoring high and satisfactory for both population sample and statistical backings. For achieving high organization performance through servant leadership by David E. Melcher and Susan M. Bosco, which is the article given by the CEO, I discovered that it is more descriptive, weak in population sample, limited in research location. It is biased in its conclusion, and encourages long working experience among employees. Why using hierarchy for liberating servant leadership instead of controlling employees by Bill Nobles encourages self-improvement, encourages organizational effectiveness, encourages organizational enhancements, stimulates natural learning, developing all 5 physical disciplines of transformational leadership by Peter Senge, and it has the ability to utilize personal knowledge. This article also presents the freedom to learn from mistakes. In conclusion, therefore, I will recommend Article 2 as a better article to implement servant leadership culture in an organization like us, because it is more research based on the terms of the research design, methodology, and philosophy. Thank you.